Okay, we're going to look at two different skills, semicolons and colons, and learn how to use them so that you can write more effectively. Okay. All right, semicolons have multiple rules. The first one is it replaces a period if the topics are closely linked. Okay, that tells you that both have to be complete sentences. Okay. Call me tomorrow. You can give me an answer then. Both of those are complete sentences and they are related. They're about the same subject. We have paid our dues. We expect all the privileges listed in the contract. Two complete sentences, related, so you use a semicolon. You would not want to use a semicolon if sentence number 1 talked about dogs, and then sentence number 2 talked about going to the movies. You would use a period there because they're not related. The sentences have to do with the same subject. In this one right here, although they tried, that's a fragment. You cannot have a semicolon with a fragment. Okay? This is a complex sentence, and you have to have a comma after your introductory phrase. Okay? And there it is, correct. This rule, okay? This is actually going to be your assignment at the end. You're going to choose a topic, and you're going to write 3 sentences using be about any of these topics. And you can do multiple topics. I don't care. I'm more concerned about this. When you're done, I want you to highlight your subject in one color and your verb in another. So you'll do that at the end. All right, sentence or rule 2. To combine 2 complete but related sentences, put the words before however, therefore. So if you have a transition word, and we talked about this, they have a fancy word called conjunctive adverbs. We're just going to call them transition words. If you have one of the fancy transition words that are connecting 2 sentences, you put a semicolon before it and a comma after. Remember what I said, always 2 punctuation marks with these words. Okay. If it's interrupting a sentence, which was our lesson from last week, it's comma, comma. But in this case, they're combining 2 complete sentences, and 2 complete sentences is semicolon, comma. Okay. So remember, 2 punctuation marks, 2 complete sentences, semicolon, comma. If you're interrupting one sentence, it's comma, comma. Okay. And this is for all those fancy transition words. Therefore, furthermore, consequently. Okay. Make sure that you do not capitalize the first word after a semicolon. Okay. It's always lowercase unless it's like the name of a person. Okay. At the end, you'll do this. You'll write 3 sentences using the rule that I just went over, making sure you highlight the subject and the verb when you're done. And this is on a handout as well. Now this rule I'm going to go over just because it's important, but you're not going to see it on the ACT, and we're not really going to do much with it until next semester, but I want you to at least have it now in your notes, just in case you happen to come across it. Okay. If you have a sentence with a ton of commas, okay, and you're listing the items in a series, you need to switch some of those commas to semicolons. Okay, that makes sense. Which ones? Let's look at our example. It's easier to figure out from our example. The conference has people who have come from Moscow, Idaho, Springfield, California, Almo, Tennessee, and other places. In this one, this reads like separate places, but it's not. It's Moscow, Idaho, Springfield, California, and Alamo, Tennessee. And so what you do is you're going to keep the comma separating city and state. But this comma, you're going to change to a semicolon. So you would separate the items in a series with a semicolon so that we can figure out that, okay, this is 1 unit right here, 1 unit, and 1 unit. Okay. You're not going to get that very often, but I do want to make you aware of it because there are some writers that use that. Notice I said skip this practice. You will not be practicing that rule. All right, colons. When you see a colon, it means that is to say, or here's what I mean. So in a sentence, anytime you see a colon, kind of replace that with those words and see if it makes sense. The one that you're most familiar with is it introduces an item in a series. Okay. Do not capitalize the first item after the colon. You know what to do. Practice. Notice that it can be just one item. Okay, I'm listing what you do. Practice. It's just one thing. You may be required to bring many things, and then you list them. Okay. I want the following items. Then you list. Okay. That one's the easy one because you've had it for so long. This rule, for it to also be one word, okay? And you will practice this one. 3 sentences using that rule, highlighting your subject and verb in another color, and you can choose one or multiple topics from there to write about. If you look back over here, this is the one that you may not be familiar with, and it's the harder one, and it's the one you're going to see most often in class because it's the one tested on the ACT. A colon is used instead of a semicolon between independent clauses when the second sentence explains, illustrates, paraphrases, or expands on the first sentence. Example, he got what he worked for. That's a complete sentence. He really earned that promotion. That's a complete sentence. That's a colon because this sentence explains that. Remember the old saying, complete sentence. Be careful what you wish for. Complete sentence. But this explains or describes that saying. And so you're going to use a colon. Okay. Now, it is possible, as practice is also explaining, the key part is the explain, illustrate, or expand on the first sentence. You're going to practice this. Choose topics, write 3 sentences using that rule, and highlight your color and verb. Okay. Hopefully that helped you with semicolons. It should be review, except for the second colon rule. So if you have any questions, make sure that you let me know.